Chapter 29. All the eyes and watchful had turned southward, where jagged strips of lightning ripped apart the sky. Layla stood on the dirt road, her hair whipping about her face in a cold and brutish wind. Thunder rolled over and over again, shaking the dirt beneath her feet. Doors rattled on their hinges, pots and pans shook loose from their shelves, and what few children were left began to cry. The thin glass in the windows of the downwind trembled in their frames. Then one after the other they exploded. Glass landed on the road beside Layla, but she didn't move. The word storm didn't describe what she saw. A storm, even the worst of them, raged The word storm didn't describe what she saw. A storm, even the worst of them, raged imprecise and indifferent. But this was focused, targeted, a hammer to the anvil. Layla couldn't look away. No one could. Ulian had removed his spectacles in reverent awe, his mouth hanging open. Deus, help us, someone muttered a prayer, but thunder drowned it out. A bolt of lightning exploded at the bottom of the hill, and whatever trance had been on the dozen of onlookers in the street broke. Layla didn't see where the lightning had landed, but she screamed anyways. The air filled with the smell of burning leather and fresh spring rain. A tingle ran up Layla's arms and spine, standing, her hairs upright. They all turned and ran up the hill. Layla's ears filled to bursting with the sound of cracks and booms and screams behind her as she ran. Her mind tried to keep up, but her body ran ahead of her thoughts. She would pass a building and only register it a dozen of steps later. The dirt of the street had turned to cobblestone before she realized the door to the sanctuary, now far behind, hung open. It was further still before her mind could comprehend that not everyone ran from the danger. Some ran down the hill. Men and women in dirty orange surcoats charged toward the chaos below. They held spears, shields, their faces hard, and the lightning in the sky reflected in their eyes. Soldiers. Ahead of her, people halted at the barricade near the upper half of the hill. One of those soldiers stood on a large crate, spear in hand. The other cupped about her mouth. She yelled something down at the crowd forming about her, but Layla's mind didn't register the words at first. Turn round, turn around, turn back around. Layla stopped beside a burly man with dark skin and graying beard. She knew him. She knew that she knew him, but her mind couldn't recall his name. She could imagine him with a hoe in his hand and a broad smile upon his face, surrounded by upturned soil and a wagon full of potatoes, but to name him, she couldn't do it. His name could not come to her mind. Now, though, his jaw hung slack in horror, and in his hand he gripped a naked sword. Lightning flashed again, casting the whole scene in bright light for an instant. Turn round, fight 'em low, stop 'em low. The woman's voice washed over them, but the effect was slow. Layla could see soldiers up ahead, shields butted up against one another, forming a wall, which kept Layla and the others from retreating any further. Let us through, someone called, but their words punctuated by thunder and wind. The woman shook her head. Cowards! We have to fight them now. I ain't fighting nobody, the man said beside Layla, dropping his sword to the ground. It clanged against the cobblestone. The crowd pressed forward, and the woman turned to the men with shields, face red. Let the cowards through. This ain't worth it. The crowd ahead of Layla surged forward, bodies pressing frantically through the small path of the barricade now opened. Thunder shook the ground again. Layla didn't move, didn't rush forward with the others. She wanted to, but her mind was catching up, her breath coming back. Where would they go? Up the hill where the cliff face rose too steep to climb down? They'd be trapped soon enough, dead later instead of dead now. Was that what the woman meant when she had said they needed to fight them low? The woman with the spear leapt down from her platform and shoved past Layla as she ran downhill, the other soldiers close behind. Layla watched her go down the hill toward the lightning and noise. As Layla turned and looked down the hill, she saw war for the first time. Fires lit up the foot of the hill, buildings that had been homes ignited like torches, their flames casting a smoky red hue over the bloodshed below. Dark shapes, nothing more than shadows from where Layla stood, clashed against one another at the first barricade. Archers rained arrows, which disappeared behind the firelight and into the black. In return, the Yelmes, for Layla was seeing the Yelmes, tossed lightning back toward the princess's soldiers. And in the midst of it all, towering at the center of the barricade, loomed a silhouette twice the size of any man. It wielded a spear that lashed out like a blur, its tip catching the firelight as it skewered Yelmes fighters, one after another. Inej. Lightning struck near him over and over again, but his shield shunted away each blast as if made of magic and power instead of wood. The princess's soldiers gave him a wide berth, fighting the monsters that were clawing their way over the barricade made of tables, dressers, and kegs. The sight of the giant standing before the dark mass of the forces of Katraka woke something deep from inside Layla. She felt the cool leather of the sword handle still firm in her hand. She had carried it all this way, her knuckles white from their hold on it. She was a Riker, whether she felt like one or not. Her heart fluttered and it became hard to breathe, but she clung to that thought. She was a Riker. Her father, her brother, her mother. She suddenly felt as if they hadn't abandoned her as much as they had gone toward whatever danger that they must. Layla had never felt that before, a danger she felt drawn to out of something like duty. Did Ollie see the wood this way? Was it why her mother felt that she had to chase her son into the wood? But Layla had always turned from the wood and from danger. Down the hill towards the fighting was death, but what fate lay up the hill? If the line of soldiers down there broke, then Layla would die anyways. And worse, she would die without a fight. She saw Winston in her mind, saw his fingers like claws reaching out to her, but she saw the blood from his hand, blood that she had drawn. She hadn't wanted to fight him, but she did. And when she had to, she could. And there was Inej, standing in the midst of a battle for a town that he owed nothing to. Layla felt certain, for reasons she could not explain to herself, that being next to him was both infinitely more dangerous and yet infinitely more safe than anywhere else in the world. She could go down there. She could stand beside Inej and be like her father and her mother and her brother. But fear gripped her hard enough to force tears from her eyes and mumbled prayers from her lips. And still, with shaking hands, Layla pulled the sword free from its sheath and ran down the hill.